Okay, can you believe it? It's Module 8 already. This is video 1 of 2. First thing that I'll do is address the Photoshop issues in here with this first video, and the second video we'll take a look at how to put all these pieces together in Dreamweaver. But here's the module. There's the assignment, 4 navigational images with rollover states. Insert them into a new page. That's right. The assignment at the C level at least has only one page. You can do all 4 pages for higher grades, and that's described below. Obviously, optimization, after last week, optimization of these images will still be a big deal, but you will have the advantage of creating these from scratch. You have a little more control over that even than before. Of course, we've got to make a new site and manage the site as always. There are a few last entries for your notebook for the glossary terms. Midterm test will be either in that 9th or 10th week, most likely. Let's see, there's a required discussion, tips and questions on slices, optimization, rollover states, etc. There is some reading in your textbook, but the videos will kind of be key since part of it's not covered, and some links, of course. We're dealing with Chapter 13. On the pages mentioned, there are other pages in there we may get back to. Let's see. If you're working in Photoshop, and about this time you probably will need to go out and get that 30-day trial if that's your strategy, or the student-priced version of Photoshop is available at efollett.com or through our handy ACC bookstore. Or if you have that luxury of being able to come into the lab, certainly the lab is open at any time, and you need not even own a computer or have Photoshop if you've got access to the lab. So there we go. Here's a verbal what to do, but we'll kind of cover this in Photoshop. What we're about to make in Photoshop is a document that is 170 pixels wide and 30 pixels high. Now this, of course, just refers to our Photoshop document from which we'll build our navigational slices. And those can have 4 names of your choice. I should probably show you about now what we'll be leading up to in here. Let's see. So I did some pages like this. And really it's just 4 very simple pages. I did Aruba, Jamaica, Bermuda, Bahamas. Really original, right? They link to one another. And you'll notice, like most websites out there now, when I roll over each of these navigational graphics here, it changes to a different color. When I click on it, you see a little flash of blue. That's one of my rollover states. And you can also see when if I click before I start rolling over this, these will change to a slightly different color still. So basically that's it. That's what we're going to create, and we'll start with this green square, or rectangle rather, in Photoshop. So here we go. And we'll be saving those different rollover states out as slices, and they'll each have a different extension on there. You'll see what the file names are, but there'll be U for upstate. That's the regular plain state that you see. O for over, D for down, when your mouse actually clicks and goes down on it. That was that little blue flash that you saw. And over while down, that was that sort of light teal that you saw when I moused over it after having clicked already. That's basically it. It's outlined here what to do for the A, the B, the C, etc. Basically that 4-page site that you saw with all 4 of those rollover states would be for the A. So here we go. What will be another part of the end result of this Photoshop exercise is in my images folder. I will have this collection of 16 images. It's my 4 upstates, for each of those nav graphics, and then for each item, Aruba, Jamaica, etc., I'll have 4 different states. Here's down, over, while down, and up, and likewise for each one. Okay, so here's my Photoshop document, and this is fairly simple. If you are already a Photoshop maven, I challenge you to, to make a set of navigation with more expertise than this and more subtlety. Possibly there's a photographic background, possibly each of the rollover states, that background takes on a different shade, or something subtle and kind of fun like that. Or you could, if you're a Photoshop maven, take each of these layers that has the type on it and do a little something, like say inner shadow. Oops. There we go. Something along that line, and use that as an overstate. But if you're not a Photoshop guru just yet, feel free to keep it very, very simple. All I've got here are 4 different, and in Photoshop you can turn layers on and off with this little eyeball here in the Layers palette. The Layers palette is available to you under Window, Layers, right there. Feel free to have just one state, or one layer rather, for each of your links. Aruba, Jamaica, Bermuda, Bahamas, whatever 4 categories you choose. And then your up and over and down states can be determined simply by a different background color. And this is fairly simple to do. Fairly simple to do. Let's see here. So I'll put this one away and we'll start over. Yes, I want to save it, definitely. I've included a separate folder here this time called Workup. I think in the previous module I called it Stuff for lack of something a little more elegant. Workup sounds, maybe a little more professional than Stuff. And Workup is where I've got my sample PSD in there. And then of course those went into my root folder. I'm going to do the brave and or foolish thing of throwing all these away right now, because we're going to make some new ones. We're just going to work together here and make some new ones. I'll go into Photoshop and I'll do a new document, Command N for a new document. I'll call it nav. This one we'll call nav.psd. I'm making it 170 pixels wide, and Photoshop, we've got lots of choices to describe our dimensions. This one we'll call pixels, since we're ultimately dealing in something going on the web. 170 wide, 120 pixels high, 72 pixels per inch RGB color, and it doesn't really have to be 16-bit. We can make it 8-bit for the web. We can set a background color of white, but we're probably going to change it anyway. That's okay, and I'll click OK. Here's what I get. It's a 170 by 120 pixel document. I'm going to scoot this out this way and get my zoom tool, zoom in a couple of notches. These are selection tools up top here for those that are kind of new to Photoshop. And again, you can go, when you've got Photoshop open, you can get Photoshop Help, and it's a pretty good tool for help on any subject in Photoshop. I'll introduce mostly just the tools that we'll use. In this collection of selection tools, we have a slice tool. It might be hiding under the crop tool. If you kind of click and hold here, then you'll get this drop-down menu of sub-tools within there. Get the slice tool. If you don't see rulers up top here, because these will be handy, it's under View or Command R, much like other Adobe apps. And we're going to grab a ruler from here, or rather grab a guide from this ruler, and come down and place one at 30 pixels. Well, where is 30 pixels? It's actually right about there, but how would we know that? There's a panel here called Info, available again under Window. info. And that, when we, among many other things that it can do, when we grab a guide from the ruler, you can see this little tiny number in that lower left of the info box that has a Y value, in other words, how far up and down on this axis. And there's 30. We're going to place a guide at every 30 pixels. If you get a guide in the wrong place, this is the move tool, and you can kind of scooch that around. 57, there's 60. I'll let go. Did it say? Yeah, that's at 60. Okay, and we'll get one last guide, place it at 90. Okay, and this is sliced up into 4 pieces. Now, well, not sliced exactly. We've drawn guides. We'll get our slice tool, and each tool has this little option bar up here. And if a tool is not behaving the way that you thought it would, check the options bar. Maybe, particularly if you're in the lab here, somebody else may have been messing around with it. But when I've got the slice tool active, up here in the options bar, there's something called slice from guides, which is really handy for this particular assignment. Click, and we've got 4 different slices. Now I know in advance I'm going to have 4 different subjects here. In my case, Aruba, Jamaica, Bermuda, Bahamas. So I can double click on this slice name. I guess I need my slice select tool. I will double click. Slice select is a variation of the slice tool. Has that little arrow coming off of it, and if you double click, there it is. Double click on that slice name. We get slice options, and you can name your slice. This will come in handy in a little while. So even before putting my type in, I'm going to name this slice. Double click. Let's see, Aruba, Jamaica, and these I'm keeping lowercase, no spaces. Again, because this is how we'll actually build the file name of that image that we make from this slice. Slice select, double click, Aruba, Jamaica, Bermuda. Spelling counts, big time on these. Bahamas. Aruba, Jamaica, Bermuda, Bahamas. Okay. Very good. So I've got my slices named. Unfortunately, it doesn't show up here. They're just numbered 1, 2, 3, 4 in the order of their making. Now, in Photoshop, the first thing you start off with is a background layer. It's locked. It's got some special functions. You can double click on it and tell it to be just a plain old layer. That's fine too. You can name your layers by double clicking here, but let's get to that later when we've got a few layers to deal with. I'm going to click New Layer. That's this little icon here at the bottom of the layers palette, or you could go up to the, I keep saying palette, that's what they used to call them. I may use palette and panel interchangeably, pardon me for doing so. You can go up here to the panel button and get New Layer. Pretty much the same thing. There we go. So I'm going to create my 4 colors on here. So I'll call these up, over, down, and I'll just abbreviate in this last one, over while down. There we go. And up. So what I meant to do was double click on the foreground color. In Photoshop, you have a foreground and background color. Those of you that are familiar with Illustrator may recognize this position in the tool bar as fill and stroke colors. In Photoshop, it's foreground and background color, and those can be swapped with this little arrow. But if you double click on that, you can get the color picker. And I'm going to use the so-called web safe colors. Those are displayed by clicking only web colors. And we'll just, I don't know, choose some greens and teals and so forth. I'll choose that for my up color. There we go. And for over, and each time you highlight one of these layers, that layer is active. So I can color this layer, and I'll choose a color for my overstate. Let's see, what would be a good contrast to that. I don't know if that's enough. Maybe keep it somewhat subtle, not too garish. Actually, this palette is kind of garish, but that's okay. Let's see, and then on my down state, let's have another background color. I think before we went kind of deep blue, something along that line. I'll click OK, and you see each time I click OK in the color picker, this foreground color changes in my toolbar. So I've got my down layer selected, and I can Option Delete to fill with that foreground color. That was Option Delete, or I'll Command Z and undo that, or as an alternative, if you get a little oogie about all these key commands, as an alternative, right here under this gradient, I can click and hold and get something called the Paint Bucket tool. And pow, I can click and fill with the foreground color just the same as Option Delete. And then my over while down color, I'll click, oops, there we go, click on my foreground color to get the color picker again. And let's do, I don't know what, something like that. And I'll Option Delete. There we go, over while down. Okay. You know, I'm putting white letters over top of this. Maybe I'll bring that down a notch. How's that? A little gray, perhaps. Oh, yeah, well. Let's go with that one. See what happens. Option Delete. On my over while down. Okay. So I've got these four colors, and you'll notice each time that I have filled a progressively higher layer, the others seem to disappear in the image. They're all here. Whoops, they're all here, but they just are covering up one another every time an upper layer is made visible. Okay, I'll highlight that topmost layer, and then we'll come in with our type tool. Here's the type tool in Photoshop, letter T, much like other applications. Let's see, this thing is 170 pixels wide. That means the halfway point is going to be about 85, something along the lines of right there. And look up on the rulers, it gives you an indicator of where your cursor is. There we go. So I'll type in Aruba. And I'm not seeing it because it's typing in with my foreground color. If I were to, say, make this OWD layer disappear, I would at least see it. But I think we want it to be visible everywhere. I'll double click on there. See, there's my line of type. There's that center point. I've got up here in my options bar, you can go flush left, center, flush right, several other type attributes. You can choose your typeface from there if you like, or you can do Command T and get the character panel. Now both the character panel and the options bar have something that's going to be really key for me right now. Select text color. I'm just going to go plain old white. Plain vanilla. And that didn't apply, of course, because I had not selected my type before I tried to change the color. Let's do that again. Plain vanilla. Okay. I'll switch to a darker color and zoom in. You'll notice, you know, if you're accustomed to InDesign or something, Photoshop treats the type, once you flatten it, it's pixels. When it's text like this, it's vector based, but it'll show up as pixels to show you what it's going to look like. And the edges of these have something that we call anti-aliasing. That means, you know, rather than go totally white or totally royal blue and have a big stair-step thing like a Persian rug or a tile mosaic kind of a look, which it does have ultimately if you zoom in, it has some intermediate shades of this blue or of any background color that we put behind it. the edge of that type is anti-aliased. It has some intermediate shades to promote the idea in your eye of a curved line made out of these little pixels. And if I were to show you actual pixels, it starts looking pretty good. You know, when we zoom in, it looks kind of a little on the clunky side perhaps, but put it at its actual size in pixels and it starts looking pretty good. I'm going to take the Move tool. I'm in my type layer here, marked Aruba. I'm going to take my Move tool and hold down my Shift key to constrain that center line and move this kind of up and down a little bit. And I'm just going to eyeball this just visually. Does it look like it's centered within that 30 pixel vertical space? Pretty close. Okay. I'm going to kind of cheat fair a little bit here. And while I've got this Aruba layer highlighted, I'm going to go up to my panel button and say Duplicate Layer. And this one I'll call Jamaica. And for the layer name, this is not a big deal really. I kind of stick with the habit of lowercase. Now if you let the layer be named from the text that you've put in there, it'll duplicate that text. It's not a big deal either way, just I kind of have a habit of that. So this will be my Jamaica layer. And it duplicated this right smack over top of the other one. Now I've got the Jamaica layer highlighted right now. I'll get that Move tool up top from my selection tools there in the toolbar. And I'll click and hold my Shift key so I'm not able to move it side by side, or side to side really. And I'll just move this up and down till it kind of looks like it's centered. Right about there. And now I can take the Text tool and double click, select that whole line and type in Jamaica. Now this one, you want to type in plain language, caps, spaces, exclamation points, whatever you like. Make this one readable. This is for your reader. It's not for, you know, this is a graphic. It is for the human being on the other end of that screen. Not for some web spider that's going to get content, you know, not for the browser. This right here is for human beings, so make it readable. Now I'm in my Type tool. There we go. That got me out of the Type tool. Now I can duplicate the layer again, and we'll just do that same little exercise again. Bermuda is the third one. I'll get that Move tool up top here. Move it on down. And that's right in the ballpark. Get the Text tool again, double click, Bermuda. Okay. I just clicked back and forth there just to get out of my my Type tool so that I'd be able to duplicate the layer in Bahamas. And once again, get the Move tool. It duplicated Bermuda right over top of that. So this Bahamas layer is now actually the topmost layer where it says Bermuda. I'll just grab that with my Move tool, hold down my Shift key while I do it so that I can't really move it from side to side. It'll go at like 45-degree angles and so forth, but if I'm careful, it won't move side to side, just up and down, and that looks about right. And once again, get that Type tool, double click, Bahamas. Okay, so I'm all set. These are the layers that I will need. This green I've chosen for my up state. This is the state of my graphics that you'll first see them. This is their normal state, called an up state, on the page. And I've got in each of my sliced areas my type. And those will just stay on. Now if I were using type, using different colors of type or different effects on the type, these might be the layers that I'm turning on and off also. In my case, my over and down and over while down states are indicated by various colors. So there we go. as I go to save these for the web, what I'll want to do is turn off what I don't want for that state. This is my up state, so I just want up. I don't want over, down, overall down, just up and the white type. So there we go. All right, checking the spelling one more time. Looks like we're okay, I think. And now I'm ready to, I should save this again, actually. Should have been saving all along. And where did we save this? We saved it in the workup folder, nav.psd. There we go. So I will have this always in my workup folder. This is my PSD. It's my layered document, my source document. If things change later, it's easy for me to edit right here in this source document. Keep this. Keep a layered PSD in a separate folder. Call it workup, call it stuff, call it whatever your boss wants you to call it, but keep it. I'll go into Save for Web and Devices. This is going to let me optimize. Let's do 4UP, and let's take a look here. I've got GIF going on here at first. GIF is for solid colors, things that are type on a solid color. Pardon me, like this. Logos that are nice, hard edged, either black and white or solid color logos. It's great for that. JPEG is something for more photographic or illustrative things where you've got softer transitions between colors. So let's do a little 4UP comparison. Let's do GIF versus JPEG here, and this Save for Web and Devices has a little zoom tool of its own. Now we can see. Here's my GIF that we're saving, and it's a compressed file. I mean, it's an optimized file rather. It's small. It's like each of these slices is 5 bytes. It says, how cool is that? The JPEG is 4K. That's a perfectly respectable size for something like this. But look what happened with the JPEG. These areas in between at the transition from white to green here, they go all mottled and haloed and strange. The transition's much smoother on the GIF. Now, that kind of calculation would be an advantage with a photo, where we're talking about more subtle variations. JPEG's kind of looking for some subtle variations and evidently making some happen where there were none. So we'll definitely go with GIF here. Let's see, I'll get the content tool back and we'll switch this back to GIF. In rehearsal, I had one of these make one slice that said JPEG all over the place. Hopefully we'll get all GIF this time. So let's see, we'll go back to 2UP. This is the original. Here's my GIF. Yeah, you can see the color shifts a little bit, even though it's the quote web safe colors. It does happen. Now, next thing I was going to talk about was the edit output settings. This will be important in naming your slices. Let's see, and we don't need to generate any HTML with this. Dreamweaver's doing that for us. We want to talk about slices. If we were to generate HTML, Photoshop would generate a little bit of either a CSS or a table for us to position these things. We can talk a little bit more about that in another unit when we're talking about using Photoshop to kind of design and slice up your site. The default slice naming, I'm just going to put none on everything here. You'll see when you open up, these fields will be populated with Photoshop's best guess of what you might want to name. Just put none on everything here, and then go to Saving Files. And what we want, remember we named those slices with our Slice Select tool? Now is where that slice name will come in handy. Under File Naming, first field we want Slice Name, and then the next one underscore. It's way down here. And then we're going to actually type in U for up, O for over, D for down, OWD for over while down. This first set is U for up. We're going to make the up states. And I'll click, and now I'll save. Now I've got my root folder set up. I've got my images folder in here. By default, unless you tell it not to, and you can, using that same output settings dialog box, you can tell it not to make an images folder, but by default, Photoshop is going to want to make an images folder. So if I click on my images folder, it will put a second images folder in there. Beware of that. What you'll want is to just select your root folder right here, and then Photoshop will see the images folder that's already there. It won't duplicate any effort, and it will just put those images right into your images folder. We don't need HTML in this case. We just want the images. And rather than selected slices, I'm going to tell it to give me all slices, all 4 of those. We'll hit save. Boom. And let's see what's in my root folder. There they are in my images folder, and they're all GIFs. Aruba _u, etc., all with _u. Terrific. Let's go back and I'll do my overstate now. This strategy that I've used, each of these layers completely covers up the other one, but just to be safe, you can turn off the upstate. And there we go. So these, that was my upstate. What's visible now is my overstate. It's this kind of teal, for lack of something more wonderful. Now just straight to Save for Web and Devices again. I already know that I want it to be GIF, and that looks pretty nice. Oh, that is a teeny file size. That's great. Let's see, and you can experiment with different kinds of dithering, diffusion pattern, no dither, different amounts of colors. 256 is just fine. Here's what I'm looking for, my panel button, Edit Output Settings. We've already got our slices good to go with that none. What I want to do is get saving files, and rather than that U that I typed in before, we'll type in O, so it'll be slice name _O. Click OK, click Save, and yes, it's still going to my root folder. It's always good to double check each time. Still going to the root folder, and now it should save those into my images folder. Yes, we're building that big collection. I've got an O and a U for each destination here now. And likewise, back to Photoshop. Let's see, let's swap out our colors. That's the whole point. And then Save for Web and Devices. Looks good. Get the output settings. We'll get saving files. This time, rather than O for over, I'll put D for down. I will click OK. Save into my root folder. Images only, all slices, very good. It keeps growing. D for down, O for over, U for up. And one last time, we'll get that OWD. I've changed my color. I can go Save for Web and Devices. I'll click on that panel button, get Edit Output Settings, go to Saving Files, right there in this pull-down menu, drop-down menu rather, and rather than that D that we typed in, it's OWD, over while down. And there isn't necessarily anything magic about these things I'm typing at the end. It's more for your own sanity, more for your own organization. Dreamweaver will put some code around these that gives them their actual function, but this helps you give a kind of a hierarchy to your own file organization that will match the function. Click OK and save. Yes, it's going to my root folder. Images only, all slices, yes. Save. And I should have my full complement now. Each of these should have 4. Are they all GIF? GIF, 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 GIF. Yes, they are. Super. And that is our Photoshop video. Next, we're going to take this into Dreamweaver. Now that we've made our full complement of 16 different files for our 4 different navs, next we'll go into Dreamweaver and see how to put them onto a page like this. We'll see you in a moment.